Political parties emerge out of interests. I should add, national collective interest. If it's an individual's interest, that's too narrow for anyone to build a political party. A way to understand interests is perhaps to look at the threats to those interests. So let's just take an example. The year is 1780. You have the French Republic fighting very hard under the Industrial Revolution to change social classes. So there's a National Assembly, and the king sits at the head of the assembly when he is forced, because he didn't want to attend the National Assembly. He sits ahead of the assembly, and on his right, the first interest, what was called the first class, or the first citizens, were the clergy. On his left, you had the nobles, the people who owned the land. And the front had people called the commoners, the common people. But because the society was changing, there was a bit of manufacturing starting to happen, a bit of trade, a bit of rights and freedoms beginning to be shouted about. The nobles united in a collective interest with the commoners and began the French Revolution. So interests are only larger if you have to sustain a political party. That's why you hear that a political party is right of center. Right means that conservative, keep the status quo. Left, you are reformist, you want to change. Those things happen because you've understood a collective interest. And a collective interest can be threatened. So what was threatening France at the time was landlessness, serfdom, lack of jobs. Yet the proletariat, so the working class, was emerging in towns. There were philosophers and intellectuals who were beginning, out of enlightenment, beginning to show the direction of where the society needs to go. That's how political parties emerge. The NRM did not begin as a political party. It began as an alliance between the commoners, the peasants in our language, and a few intellectuals. What were the threats? Religious bigotry. Because from the year 1888, Ugandans died for religion. Yet we were not Northern Ireland, we were not the ones bringing these religions, but a number of our relatives, our friends, died because of religion. Some of them migrated to parts of Ankole, starting whole new groups of people running from Uganda, where intense persecution of religion was. That religion continued to influence our politics, that by 1961, in the election of April 1961, there was a very famous religious leader who took to the microphone and said, if you elect this political party, it is sacrilegious, it is haram. Why? Because that political party was associated with a religion that was demanding that the children of Muslims would have to convert before they can be admitted to schools. In fact, I also know in my area where one Sunday, one parish priest baptized 700 people, putting a cross on their faces and then naming them as members of a particular political party. But this is history for you, but it's important that you understand our origins. Religious bigotry divided our country so badly that by 1982 in the bush, the movement chased chaplains from, in barracks, in places where the army would gather. And you can see even today, there are no chaplains in all our military installations. By 1985, the same religious leader who had said it's sacrilegious, and the one he was talking about, they were united around supporting the movement. Why? Because the movement said the interest is not religion, the interest is economy. Religion found us as a people. Religion will leave us poor if we are not organized around what matters as a central common interest. That's why your country today is one of the most tolerant religious nations in the world.